Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Donsky, co-founder of Naturally Savvy, and today I'm here with Theo Quinto, co-president of Sovereign Silver. Theo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrea. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Now, I've known you a really long time, so I'm really happy that I have this opportunity to interview you. And the reason I wanted you on is we're in the fall and weather's getting colder, and I really want to look at products that help to support our immune system. And one of the first products that come to mind for me is silver. So I thought, who better to ask than you, a naturally savvy partner who can really, talk about the science, talk about the benefits, talk about why we would want to use it and how to use it. So I'm just going to turn the floor over to you. I'd love to know, really, how did it start? What gave you the idea? How did Sovereign Silver come to be?
Yeah, okay. So it all started really with my father about 50 plus years ago. He was renovating a small castle in France, and it had a beautiful stone-faced pool with a waterfall coming into it. And he thought to himself, wow, if I'm going to renovate the rest of the house, the castle, it's a small 6-bedroom castle. He thought to himself, okay, well, I'm going to have to address the water in the pool as I upgrade the water purification system. And so he thought to himself, wow, I don't want to have to use chemicals or chlorine. What else is there? Because my dad's always one of those guys who thinks way outside the box, doesn't just go with the conventional application. And so he researched at the local university, and they connected him with a company that created a silver and copper ionization system. So, briefly put, you're electrically generating these silver ions and copper ions into the pool through the water purification system. And hence the silver and the copper together do what chlorine can do and more without the toxicity of such.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that. That's really cool. Wow.
Pretty amazing.
We have a pool, and that's something that I'm like, wait, as you're talking, I'm like, wait a second, I'd love to look into it. So is it something that's used for pools? Like, I know that there's the saltwater pools.
So you can find pools that that do silver and copper, others that do UV, ultraviolet, saline, and you also have ozone. So there are a variety of different alternative pools that can be, purification methods that could be put into the pool. So you don't have to use things like chlorine.
Wow, that's very cool. So what made you, so it started that way. So how did it come to a product that we would start ingesting?
Okay. So then if you back up about 23 years ago in 1996, my dad was sitting in his house one day, and he was it was the day that he kind of decided that he would no longer be in the airline industry. And he's actually owned 3 different airlines, 2 cargo airlines and 1 passenger airline. And that day, just by chance, one of his accountants showed up to his house with a stack of paper about colloidal silver. So you're talking about 1996 here. And so the accountant basically told my dad, there's this product out there that, does all this, has this amazing benefits, and left all this information with my dad. And my dad spent time now over the next 3 days reading through it all and trying to, get a perspective on it, and realize, oh my God, there's a health food store product, a dietary supplement product that is based on silver and similar to what he had in a pool system once upon a time. So of course, then he started looking into it, and he realized, that there was an opportunity.
Wow, that's amazing. And the product can be taken internally and can also be put on topically, which is has its benefits.
So we have the bioactive silver hydrosol, Sovereign Silver bioactive silver hydrosol, which is the ultimate refinement of colloidal silver in the world anywhere. And that's what you use internally. And then we have our topical silver first aid gel under Sovereign Silver first aid gel for topical healing.
All right. So I want to go and I want to talk about the science. Is there science behind colloidal silver?
Absolutely. There's tons of it. First of all, let's just talk about silver generally and not the brand, right? Because we're not going to make we don't need to make any claims about the product. The silver, the history of silver is extremely well established. And it goes back centuries and millennia, actually. So Hippocrates was using it in 400 BC. So that's about almost 2,400 plus years ago. He was using it for stomach ulcers and other maladies and healing opportunities in the body. And the literature talked about the finest powders of silver.
And how many different products do you have in your specific line at Sovereign Silver?
So if you take a look at all of our bottle count, there's about 19 bottles in the line, of which most of it is the liquid bioactive silver hydrosol, which is the ultimate refinement of colloidal silver anywhere in the world. It comes in kids. It comes in pets. Also the same exact liquid. And then there's the couple gel bottles in the line, which is a gelled format of the liquid product.
Now, I know that it's also been used, it's being used by burn centers, I heard, in terms of
Yeah.
testing.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's a great indicator right then and there what silver is all about. If it's the if there's a silver cream called Silvadene, which is the standard of care since the 1960s in burn centers everywhere in the world. So silver is known to be antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, according to the medical literature, but also its regenerative powers, the fact that it can heal damaged tissue, irritated tissue at up to 3 times what the body can do on its own.
Wow, that's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Where does it come from?
So silver is a mineral. It's a metal. It's in the earth. And ultimately, it's like any metal. It's mined and then refined to whatever specifications. And for us, we have the most strenuous requirements, and we refine our silver. So we go to a refiner, basically a metal refiner, and we specify to them that we want it refined to the ultimate level of refinement, which is 99.999% pure silver. So that's 5 nines. You cannot refine. There's no such thing as 6 nines percent pure silver.
Wow. All right, I want to talk about the uses for silver. Now, we have an article on Naturally Savvy where we talked about my daughter had a scratch cornea, and I used your silver to heal her cornea. And it literally it didn't even take that long. We put a patch on and we would just reapply it. And I don't know if there's science behind that. I know that it did work for us. Can you tell us what it would, if somebody's watching right now and they're like, great, why would I want to use silver and incorporate it into my daily life?
Okay, so we talked about Silvadene being the standard of care in burn centers everywhere in the world since the 60s. So its property of regenerating, healing at up to 3 times faster and reducing scarring by up to 80%, as long as you get to it right away. Well, then whether that's truly externally, or in this case of your daughter's eye, or even internally, like gut problems, like gut dysbiosis, like Crohn's, irritable bowel, leaky gut, injuries are injuries. Tissue damage is tissue damage, and it needs to be accelerated and healed. And that's where silver comes into play.
How much would we want to be taking a day for general maintenance?
A teaspoon under your tongue for 30 seconds and swallow is a maintenance. I do that twice a day. I keep the bottle somewhere near my toothbrush so I can always remember to take it morning and at night before I go to bed. And for me, that's just a proactive, a little more aggressive maintenance program. 3 times a day would be immune building.
Okay, so it's basically to help support our immune system. 3 times a day will help to build our immune system.
That's correct. So that's the difference between a maintenance and immune building. And then if you're actually fighting something, you need to take it every 2 hours, 7 times a day. So let's just say you're up 15 hours a day, divide that by 7, you get about 2 hours, and that's how you take it throughout the day, because silver stops working in the body after about 3 hours.
Ah, okay.
Right.
Well, that's good to know. I didn't realize that.
So, we're only 10 parts per million, which is a safe, low concentration, but our unprecedented efficacy comes from the fact that we have the world's smallest particle size, most amount of particle charge, and it's completely protected with glass bottles and pharmaceutical grade water. So the beauty of our product, or the efficacy of our product, is completely protected until it's unleashed into your body.
Now, I'm happy that you brought up the parts per million, because even myself, it's confusing a little bit. Can you go into what that means and how it differs from?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So parts per million means it's a concentration. So if you look at 10 parts per million, that means out of a total of 1 million parts, 10 parts is silver. So it's literally a ratio of silver to water. So if you have a product that is 50 parts per million, 5 times more concentrated than our product, well, then that means that it's 1 million total parts, of which 50 parts is silver. Now, many people are going to be under the impression that maybe more is better, but when it comes to silver, more equals toxicity. It's not about how much silver is present or the fact that you're ingesting more silver. It all comes down to quality, particle size, particle charge, and the purity of the product. And the reason we are the #1 selling brand, both in America and in Canada, is because my father's manufacturing process that he invented yields the world's smallest particle size ever seen in the last 125 years of colloidal silver history.
I'm glad that you brought up, more isn't necessarily better because it can get confusing for consumers who are at the store and they see different types of silver, what they should be looking for. So is there something on the label, like obviously the brand Sovereign Silver, but is there something else on the label other than parts per million that consumers should look for when buying silver?
When you're shopping for silver or a colloidal silver product, the most important thing is parts per million. That's kind of like the inches on a TV, right? You want a 65-inch TV, 75-inch TV. Next thing would be, okay, that's the concentration of the product. That's how much silver is in it. But what is the quality? What have they achieved in terms of attributes, which is now particle size, particle charge, purity, because now you're getting into the attributes of what defines Sovereign Silver as the Rolls Royce of the category.
Very interesting. Now, let's talk about safety, because as you're talking about parts per million, I would be remiss not to ask you the question about turning blue, because we are talking about colloidal silver, and that's one of the things that come up often. Let's talk about that. And, is it true? Does it turn people blue? What are they doing? I hear they're making it at home. Would that happen with Sovereign Silver? And I'd love you to touch upon this a little bit.
Sure. So one of the biggest negative PRs against the category of silver products is that it's not safe, it's not effective, it's a heavy metal, and it can turn you blue. So on the issue of safety, in America, we have the US EPA, that's the Environmental Protection Agency. And long ago, they established a daily oral silver reference dose, which is 350 micrograms that can be safely taken every day for 70 years. Now, if you take that, and by the way, micrograms is now referencing a weight of something in something else. So in the case of, if you look at so we're talking about, right, 350 micrograms is safe to ingest every day according to the EPA. So if you take a teaspoon of Sovereign Silver at 10 parts per million and you were to look at the label and see what a single size, which is a teaspoon, it says it's 50 micrograms of silver. So 50 goes into 350 7 times a day. And that's why you'll see our dosing on our label go up to 7 times a day, depending on what you're fighting, because you need to be able to take it up to 7 times a day for whatever period, whether it's weeks, months. I doubt that you'll ever have to go over months at the 7 times a day, but certainly long-term problems, that's why it says 5 times a day. And that could go on for weeks, months, or even years. But even so, it's a physical impossibility to take 7 teaspoons per day for the next 70 years of your life. And even so, you'd never exceed a safe level of silver ingestion.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question if you take more than that, can it be toxic to the body? Can you take too much?
The only detrimental side effect of silver is this condition called argyria, where if you take too much of the wrong form of silver, then over time it accumulates in the body and it deposits itself in your skin, in the layers of your skin, the fatty layers. And little by little over time, since it can be photosensitive to sunlight, people can turn a certain ashen, grayish color, bluish color. First of all, in almost 21 years of selling silver, we've never had a single case of documented argyria. So what causes argyria? Well, when you take silver and you have it bound to a salt or a protein where it becomes a silver compound, now the body has a much more difficult time excreting it. And these forms of silver can easily be found in homemade colloidal silver, where people are making God knows what in their bathtub or their kitchen sink. And drinking 10 ounces of it a day, when all that is completely unnecessary. It's one thing to have an organic garden in your backyard and to grow that, but it's a completely different thing to think that you can go buy a $100, $200, $300, even $500 generator and make your own silver at home. It's really ludicrous in terms of the quality that you're making.
Yeah, so when it comes to buying colloidal silver, buy it from companies that know what they're doing. Don't make it yourself.
Well, as the Rolls Royce of the category and in our industry, but regarding silver products, we have a massive, highly professional manufacturing facility, which is NSF GMP certified. So we have every possible standard operating procedure in place to make sure that we produce the world's most refined form of silver and also the safest form. And the fact that there will never be any compounds or proteins or anything else in the product that could even ultimately one day lead to argyria. But outside of homemade products, also stay away from high concentration products. So whether you're looking at 30, 50, 250, 500 parts per million, all you're doing with these other products is overwhelming your body and forcing it to have to only focus on trying to excrete that as opposed to take value away from it.
It's great information. Thank you. And I'm learning so much. And I thought I knew a lot about silver. I've been a fan of silver, as you know, Theo, for so many years. And it's one of my go-tos if I have any type of cough or any type of, if I have a sore throat. My first line of defense, or one of my first lines of defense, is taking silver. So I'm happy that we're doing this because for me, I'm not going to say for everybody, but for me, it works really well.
Absolutely, silver should be the first line of defense. The fact that it looks like water, tastes like water, behaves like water, and yet the historical properties are very well documented throughout the peer-reviewed medical literature. I mean, you're getting immune building through white blood cell potentiation. You have a second army of these silver particles coming into your body to do their job. You have healing and regeneration happening at all moments in the body, whether it's internally or externally. I mean, you're talking about an extremely powerful product.
How long does it take to work in the body?
So it starts working right away. So when you take a teaspoon of sovereign silver and you put it under your tongue, you have 9 billion particles of silver going into your bloodstream and lymphatic system sublingually to go spread out throughout the body to do their job. And kind of like Match.com, they're just waiting to go and encounter the right foe, so to speak.
Right.
So you have 9, and that relates to our unprecedented particle size of 0.8 nanometers. So the fact that sovereign silver is the most efficacious product on the market relates one way to its unprecedented particle size of 0.8 nanometers, which makes it less than 1 nanometer. So our 9 billion in a teaspoon, other competitors would only have something like 50 million. I mean, far less. Imagine a glass of sand versus a glass of gravel. That's literally what the body sees when ingesting sovereign silver versus some other brand.
And just to be clear, it's safe to use in your eyes, in your ears, in your mouth. It's safe to use topically, right?
Right. So, of course, there's limitations for dietary supplements, right, that only relate to oral ingestion. Our topical gel is for all topical situations where you'd want to use silver to heal and to fight minor skin infections, reduce topical pain, calm skin inflammation, promote healing broadly. But when it comes to the liquid, because it's a dietary supplement, most of the allowable uses are oral. But when you're asking about other ways to use the product, just remember this. It's safer than the water that comes out of your tap. So every morning you splash that into your face, you splash it into your eyes. When you take a shower, it's going anywhere and everywhere. And what I'm telling you is our product is safer than that water.
And at what age can we start using silver, your silver?
So in the United States, according to the FDA, labeling can only go for 4 years and older. So that you'll see a limitation on our label. It always talks, whether it's our kids labels or our regular core bioactive silver hydrosol sovereign silver labels, it says 4 years and older.
Is there anything else that we didn't talk about today, Theo, that you think would be valuable for our viewers and our listeners?
Absolutely. When you take into consideration of what we've just lived through over the last 6 months and the fact that people are literally doing as much research as possible about what they should be taking. When you look at silver as it compares to elderberry, vitamin C, zinc, different immune remedies, silver goes back 2,400 plus years. So that length of time is unprecedented. Also, everybody knows the saying, born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So that was a saying that came about in the Middle Ages when the rich or nobility realized that they were able to get all kinds of benefits and protection just by eating off of silver plates, drinking out of silver goblets, and using silver utensils to eat their food and cut their meat. So they were getting increased amounts of silver in their diet. And the learning lesson was, okay, whenever there's a newborn in the family and that newborn gets past the stage of breastfeeding, then give it a silver spoon, hence born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
I love hearing where sayings come from. So thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely. Another thing too is when people say, okay, why silver? And, should I even be taking a heavy metal? I mean, this is something that's really important.
Great point.
So yes, silver is a heavy metal, but it's a safe heavy metal, much like iron or magnesium or zinc. It's not a heavy toxic metal. And, when discussing metals, we don't use the word toxic enough because mercury, lead, cadmium, arsenic, and aluminum, those are heavy toxic metals, and those are extremely dangerous to ingest. And we refine all of those other impurities out of our product before it's ever made. So we don't have, you'll never get any of that with our product. So the important learning lesson here is for the consumer to understand that silver is in the diet. It's in wheat, it's in mushrooms, it's in all the water that we drink, it's in mammalian breast milk, it's in seafood. So you're getting silver anyways, but you need to supplement with silver because you're not getting enough silver in your diet. And hence that's what supplementation is all about. But people need to understand that a heavy metal is not the same thing as a heavy toxic metal. So when looking at silver, the right perspective on the metal is similar to zinc or iron.
Yeah, and that's a really good distinction, because when you hear the word heavy metal, automatically you think toxic, but not everything is toxic when it comes to heavy metal. So thank you for that.
Yeah, excellent. It's always good to clarify all these things.
Well, thank you so much for being on our show, Theo. And I really appreciate your time and for all of this clarification. And where can people learn more about Sovereign Silver? But also, what if they wanted to do some research on it? I mean, I want to go back to that research for a second, because there is research behind the product. Where can consumers learn more?
Well, you always want to go to sovereignsilver.com. Our website has a ton of information. You can go all the way down to the bottom of the page and see all kinds of links to all kinds of science. You can also follow us on Facebook or Instagram, because we're always updating stories and featuring different things. And, we're all about the concept of health sovereignty, which is taking control of your own health and not expecting that anybody else is going to do it for you.
Yeah, well said. We have to take control of our own health. So thank you so much, Theo.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Good seeing you. Take care.
You too.